Yeah. Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing? Welcome to the podcast. I'd like to say good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and all between the binary. This is Get Informed with Wajeeh. I am Wajeeh Lion, tuning in to you a little late today than usual for personal purposes. When you gotta do stuff, you do stuff. And I want to talk about something I haven't talked about yesterday. I wanted to talk about it, but I didn't give it as much attention. I also want to make sure that you guys know that uh, I have a live stream scheduled this Sunday with a professor, Mirti Rehab. She specializes in Middle East. Plus, she specializes in anti-terrorism. Been a consultant for more than 20 years. She knows what she's talking about. And she recently published a article in the last three articles in the last few weeks since the war started about the decline of the U.S. hegemony and the decline of the U.S. Uh, political standing in the Middle East. Why is this important? It is very important because I also published an article today about how Trump has been responsible in ending the the Carter Trump was responsible in basically ending the Carter Doctrine, which is a huge crisis. Let me talk to you about that for a second here. That's what I want to talk about first with you. I'm pulling out my documents. It's kind of hard to do things with one hand at the moment. I appreciate your patience with me. I also asked you guys if you have any questions to go to my group chat on Substack. And after you go to the group chat, there's a section where I say, please, um, questions right here, please. If you don't mind going there, posting your friend questions on that live group chat, I would really appreciate it. It would make my life much easier. And we can talk about why that the Saudi government is being kicked out. Sounds like, hey, what's happening? Hey, Wajeeh, if you know how is the mental well-being of our soldiers? I mean, the soldiers on the ship, mental well-being is not good, especially the aircraft carrier Bush. That particular ship that might have about 15,000 soldiers in it, or some crazy number like that. And the reality of the situation is this is the longest ship deployment in US history where the ship has approached past 300 days deployed at sea. At max, usually we keep them 200 days. Right now, they have exceeded 300 days, and that is not good for them because some of them don't even get to see the sunlight. They work and live under, somewhere deep in the ship that no one gets to see. They don't get to come out or, have normal activities. They are cramped in small spaces. Uh, their living arrangement is bunk beds that are smaller than your college dorm, and the pressure that they're in is tremendous. So no, they're not doing okay. And when they're getting food, Malcolm talked about it in his podcast. They're just probably getting a burger, a bag of chips, and a, a Diet Coke, and thank you for your service. I I wouldn't be able to do that. The termination of the Carter Doctrine. There is a temporary expulsion of U.S. forces from Saudi Arabia and Kuwait airspaces and installations and the and this just past 2 days. And May of 2026 marks a terminal paradigm shift in the Persian Gulf. Hosting nations successfully experienced sovereign veto power over the U.S. military operations. This hasn't happened since 1980s. This sort of expulsion, this sort of military veto is unprecedented in U.S. history from the Arabian Gulf. Reality is, ow, reality is when the United States does not consult the region about their military attacks, and when the United States ignores its responsibility from protecting these Gulf nations, and the Gulf nations realizing that the U.S. military presence in their area is only making them a target of Iran and is not a deterrent for the Iranian regime, then what is the point of having any of the U.S. military bases in Arabia? No, you're only making these countries target. So these countries, the Trump administration makes crazy decisions like the Project Freedom, and they use the shore waters of the Arabian Peninsula without the consultation of the Saudi government. And BS goes, hey, hold on, Habibi. Slow down, Trump, slow down. We don't want our facilities being hit. We don't, I'm not talking Arabian accent here. We don't want our oil facilities hit, huh? We don't want our oil desalination taken out. Slow down, slow down. Yes, yes, you are Superman. We know you are Superman. But whatever you're doing right now is not helping. Whatever you are doing right now, shove it up where somewhere else. Hold on. I thought saw MBS and Trump are close friends. Close friends until you come to my living. You destroy the way I live. You destroy my funding. You destroy the way I eat. You cut most of the fundings because of the Strait of Hormuz. Where am I going to eat? How am I going to pay you to protect me? And I've been paying you to protect me for the last what 80 years, only for you to not show up when it comes when you started a war without the direct consultation of us. Someone will come to me and is like, Wajeeh, but you said that Saudi Arabia has been lobbying the United States for a very long time and decapitating the Iranian regime. I'm like, yes, they did. Absolutely. Since King Abdullah was there, so since 2010, and Saudi government has been asking the United States to decapitate the Iranian capabilities. That's true. But they did not tell the United States to take actions without consultation. They didn't give the United States green light to do whatever they want in the region. They said, help us take them out. And when you are going to take them out, both the Saudis and the United States underestimated the Iranian capabilities. What is rule number one when you play chess? Never underestimate your enemy. Even if you're the best player in the world, you come to a chess game, once you start underestimating your enemy, you lose the game. Netanyahu has been going to every president he could go to convince them to decapitate the Iranian regime, and they all said no. Because when they look down deep into the costs, when they look down deep into the capabilities, they understood that it's too big of a country, too much of a population. They have invested a lot in their security apparatus, and we don't know all of their infrastructure that they have hidden under the ground. Does that mean it's a good time for us to attack? No. So everyone thought at this point that if we decapitated just the leadership, the whole thing will fall apart. That didn't happen. Because if you look at here, let me go. I'm going to do one of those things that I like to do again. Show you a diagram. I don't want to find something too complicated for you. And I also don't want something too simple for you. That's a good one. Okay. If you take a look at this, you'll notice it's already more complicated than any of your Western democratic systems, right? Let me find you something less complicated because this is literally how everything is set up. I'll start with the. Actually, I'm not going to go to another diagram. I'll start with the supreme leader. You have here, let me grab the laser. Okay. Again, thanks for your patience. So we have here the supreme leader. The supreme leader, he's in charge of everything, right? He is in control of the Security Council. He's controlled of the armed forces. He controls the media. And then uh, he controlled the Expediency Council. And he's also the head of the judiciary. That is just the supreme leader. The supreme leader, right, chooses the head of the judiciary that chooses the council of guardians, and the council of guardians must be approved by the supreme leader. Again, not only he picks the head of judiciary. Once the head of judiciary chooses the council candidates, the supreme leader must approve it. And then he also elects the assembly of experts. The assembly of experts are responsible in choosing the candidates or approving the candidate, the presidential candidate, once he's voted. Also, the assembly of experts must be voted by the votes, but they must be also approved by the supreme leader so that the public votes for them, for the president, the public votes for the assembly of experts, and the public votes for the parliament. But all of them must be approved by the supreme leader. Here, oh, yes, sorry. I've been pointing at stuff that you guys have been not seeing. Sorry. Here again, you have the voters, you have the assembly of experts, the president, and the parliament. The president, working with the parliament, gets to choose the cabinet. Again, the council of guardians that is elected by the head of judiciary and the supreme leader must approve each of the cabinet members, each of the parliament members, each of the presidential candidates, and gets to approve the assembly of experts. Now, they also must approve any laws that are passed by the parliament and the president. Does this look to you like a system that's easily divided? Does this system look like if we took out the supreme leader, they can't substitute it with someone else? No, because as soon as he's gone, the Guardian Council is there to help with the assembly of experts elect a new supreme leader. They don't even need. And even better, if the supreme leader has chosen his successor, all of this is ignored. So the current supreme leader can technically, knowing that he might be executed at any time, choose the next candidate. So when we discuss when I'm discussing the fact of the matter that the United States and Saudi Arabia have underestimated the capabilities of the Iranian government, what they have actually miscalculated is more than just the capabilities of the military apparatus, but also the capabilities of the Iranian government, to reorganize itself, even if they have, if the Saudi government and the United States and Israel and the rest of the Gulf nations came together to decapitate the Iranian government, they have shown the world that none of that is going to affect them. In addition to that, that is just their civilian infrastructure. Their civilian, not infrastructure, their civilian government infrastructure, not the military. The military, they have been paying attention because they have been involved in the Iraqi war. They've been involved in the Gaza war. They have been involved in other types of wars. And they have been paying attention to the United States actions. What do you mean, Wajeeh? They've been paying attention to the United States action? Well, they saw how the United States decapitated Iraq and took out Saddam and stayed there for another 15 years and spent at least $20 trillion or $2 trillion, I forgot, a huge stupid number like that, on the war, and lost so many lives in there. And they saw how the US government strategy of taking out military leaderships in hopes of decapitating and destroying the military system. What they did not know, the United States did not know, that the Iranian governments have prepared for that exact scenario. And they have designed the military so if you took out the leadership, the rest of the group knows what to do. You don't need them to give them more instructions. Instead of 5 snakes, you have 25 snakes or 35 snakes. That's the reality. Every time we take out some leadership in Iran, we have more extremists coming out. We have more hardliners. For some reason, our leadership believes that the more we kill from their leadership, the more likelihood that we'll get some moderate voices to negotiate with us. But the reality of the situation is every time we decapitate someone that has been negotiating with us, we're only getting someone who's more extremist, who's not willing to give up on more things that the United States expected to give, that they would give up on. So the Saudi government quickly realized that they're in deep shit. Why are they in deep shit? Because Iranian government did not only show, not talk, show. There's difference between me bragging and me showing, right? They have showed the world that they could handle US attacks and all of its United States might on their country and continue to deter ships from crossing the Strait of Hormuz. And not only that, they have shown capabilities of precise precision attacking, precise attacks, precision attacks on strategic military infrastructure for the United States and the Gulf states. When a $20,000 drone flies quietly and hits a $2 billion radar system, that radar system was paid for by the Saudi government and was not protected by the United States government. All of a sudden, the Saudis are finding themselves in a situation where, hold on, motherfucker, that's not what we agreed on. You know what? If you are not going to protect your own resources in our land, why should we keep you in it? And you want us to pay for those resources again. Habibi, I'm barely feeding myself at the moment because of the war you started. Of course, I'm going to be frustrated. Hey, let's go. Next point. So the defeat of the U.S. integrated air defense missile or integrated air and missile defenses, the correct way of saying it. Iran centers counterstrike following the February 28 initiation of Epic Fury, systematically precise attack U.S. layered defense network, and they have depleted 1,060 Patriot missiles and 190 THAAD interceptors, consuming roughly half of the pre-war global stockpile for the United States. That stockpile, each of those missiles cost at least $2 million. open source intelligence, and commercial satellite confirms catastrophic operational degradation against the United States. The Iranians struck 15 regional bases, destroyed 228 military structures. They have taken out AN-TPY-2 radars and MQ-4C friction ISR drones and E3 and AWACS command aircrafts. Those are like all of the most expensive stuff that the United States have paid for. They have roughly paid for these individual systems and these individual so the AWACS and the radars are easily cost billions of dollars. They cost us to build 40 to 50 billion dollars. If we want to rebuild them again, it will cost us $1 trillion because many of those things we don't even make anymore. So we have to start from scratch. Who's we? The United States. But who does the United States want to pay for all of that? They want Saudi Arabia. The impact is $1 trillion impact. With no imminent threat when we started this war. Project Freedom. With an uncoordinated May 3rd authorization of naval guiding, not escort, guiding through the Strait of Hormuz, fractured the U.S. Gulf Alliance. Because the United States, we keep telling you, consult us. Let's talk about the actions you're taking. No, you keep making decisions on your own. All of the decisions you are taking, you're not consulting us. Driven by a rational self-preservation strategy to shield domestic products or domestic infrastructure, including export terminals, from the Iranian retaliations. That's what I just said. The Saudi government fears Iran retaliation more than they care currently about the U.S.-Saudi alliance. Because if Iran destroys the main infrastructure that the Saudi government has, then they can't even pay the United States for weapons. They can't even pay the United States for medications. They can't pay the Western world for help for their intelligence. The Saudi government, even though they have tried to diversify their economy recently and open it up for people to visit and Western investments, these Western investments and their plans to host tourism is all gone to shit because it was all based on the fact that they provide safety and security, and it's not like the rest of the Middle East. We are safe. We have no wars. No one is attacking us. We have no terrorist attacks. We are, a moving country toward the first world. You should look at our infrastructure. The whole strategy was we provide safety and security. And that safety and security that opened up the country for investment is the same safety and security that would have provided the United States access to its land. But the United States has failed in protecting its own assets on the ground. Additionally, they have continued to undermine the Saudi sovereignty and undermine the Saudi economy. So it's very normal for them to just say, get the fuck out of here. A vulnerability demonstrated by strikes on UAE Fujairah port. Riyadh and Kuwait was like, oh, baby. You continue to say we have destroyed the Iranian infrastructure, military infrastructure, but motherfuckers just hit Fujairah. For the UAE just to clean up that destruction from the Al Fujairah, they need 6 to 8 months. That's without rebuilding. This is not easy stuff. Just to control the fire sometimes takes from 2 days to 2 weeks, depending on the amount of oil, depending on the availability of the anti-oil fire. It's not easy to control oil fire, and it's very cheap to cause that fire to happen. Their like the oil tankers, they're not hidden in a mountain. Maybe Saudi Arabia has some reserves hidden in mountains, but majority of the oil is in open tanks and circle tanks. All you need is even if you have a small drone, even less than $5,000 drone, not 15, not 20, $5,000 drone can make this whole damage. So the Saudi government enforced and Kuwaiti government a strict access, which is what has caused the United States to abort their Project Freedom. And instead of the United States coming out and saying, yeah, we have upset our Gulf partners, that's why we ended Project Freedom, and we apologize for disrespecting your space and sovereignty. Trump goes out and says, no, the reason we ended Project Freedom was because Pakistan told us to slow it down so the peace talks can continue. Bitch, please. Excuse my language. Now, the activation of the Pakistani nuclear umbrella. The Saudi government, before this war started, not knowing that this war would be starting, signed a military defense contract, a nuclear military defense contract, extending the nuclear weapon umbrella of Pakistan all the way to the Saudi government. Confirming the demonstrated vulnerability of the vulnerability of the United States forward deployments, Saudi Arabia, enacted the September 2025 Strategic Mutual Defense Agreement with Pakistan. This pact upper, up, operationalize a multiple helping strategy. Yep. So basically, making this easy to understand without saying a lot of smart words. The whole idea is to deter Iran or any other nuclear power like Israel from having the monopoly of owning a nuclear weapon in the region. And by including that in Pakistan all of a sudden finding itself in a pickle where they're dependent on Iranian oil. They're dependent on Iranian exports and imports. They have a lot of trades with Iran. They're on the borders of Iran. But in the same time, they're legally obligated to protect the Saudi government with a nuclear umbrella. Now, Iran has weaponized the de-dollarization via the Strait of Hormuz. Iran has established a Tehran toll booth with the Easy Pass, right? The architecture act effectively controlling a waterway responsible for 20% of the global petroleum. By mandating a transit fee of $1 million to $2 million per ship supertanker, payable exclusively in the Chinese yen or cryptocurrency or Trump coin, Tehran expedited the de-dollarization process. We only have understood the de-dollarization within the last few years, especially in the United States, when China, Iran, Russia, Brazil, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and many other countries have formed their own alliance, trade alliance called BRICS. And it's mostly to have economic trade, skipping US sanctions and skipping the use of the US dollar. I talked many times about how dangerous it is for the United States to lose that strategic power over the dollar. The more, so how we, the other thing that we need to know as well is that the US debt is higher than the United States GDP for the first time. In addition to that, we are borrowing money over the money that we borrowed to pay for a war that we don't have money to pay for. Does that make sense? You are already broke. You cannot balance your budget. You are borrowing money to go do something you cannot afford to do. And yeah, you're doing it. Anyone doing that, whether it's a friend or family, you'd slap them in the face and tell them, stop. What the fuck are you doing? You're borrowing money you don't have. You're spending it on shit you can't make money out of. At least invested in your own people, invested in education, invested in infrastructure, invested in the economy. No, we got to spend it on something we can't make money out of. And then they want to cut funding from Social Security. They want to cut funding from veteran uh, uh, veteran care. They want to cut funding from uh, the health department. They want to cut funding from. Now there is a virus spreading around the world, and the United States has dismantled the CDC essentially and put someone in charge that doesn't know what the fuck they're doing. And we're about to maybe get a virus in the United States. And the person in charge of that doesn't know what the fuck they're doing. Your national security is at risk on so many fronts and ends economically, maritality, diplomatically, socially, uh, however you want to call it. You are not in a good standing. Let's look at the questions you guys sent. What's really going on in Lebanon? What's going on in Lebanon is very simple. The United States keeps wanting to separate, and Israel wants to separate it from the actual war it's part of. They keep saying it's ceasefire. Meanwhile, the Israelis breaking that ceasefire on and on. The ceasefire that the United States technically had with Iran was broken yesterday because there was attacks on Iran yesterday too. So essentially, there is no ceasefire. We keep saying there's no ceasefire, and people keep coming out and telling us, no, there is a ceasefire. No, the ceasefire has ended. No ships have been passing the Strait of Hormuz. More than 1,000 ships are stranded on both sides, and your economy is stranded, and everyone else is staying hungry. Meanwhile, in Lebanon, they have thousands of people killed, thousands of innocent people injured. Many people have been displaced, not finding a place to live. Any chance they get to go back to their home, they go back to their home. It's a very small country. If there was no traffic, if there was absolutely no traffic, which is, rarely thing you see there, you can travel the whole country in 2 hours from up for north to south. But with roadblocks, with road damages, with no infrastructure, with the lack of resources, it takes them hours and hours and hours to get to where they want. And there's direct correlations between displacement and direct correlation between the number of people getting injured and killed. Someone is asking how people have been disconnected from reality because of the um, current media that we have. The current media that we have is all based on clickbaiting. It's all based on views. It's all based on covering what they think is important. Um, they don't necessarily like you saw yesterday or the day before yesterday. Malcolm during the live stream got a call from Al Arabiya and they wanted him to come on they wanted him to come on TV to talk about Colbert interview with Obama regarding whether there is or isn't aliens in the planet. Like, what the fuck are you guys doing? There is an active war happening. It's not only in the United States, it's happening everywhere. That type of media is not only misguiding Americans, it's misguiding people elsewhere. That's why this is not a paid promotion at all. But I strongly recommend you to um, get an app called Ground News. It provides you, this is not a paid promotion. I have it for myself. I use it for myself. They give you the news from all the sides and they divide it up from the far right to the far left. And they give you also news stories that have not been covered on the main live stream. If you want better coverage, if you want better understanding, if you want a full uh cover of far right to far left, I recommend Ground News. It is a little bit more expensive, but it is, like if you just watch Al Jazeera, you'll get just Al Jazeera viewpoints. If you just watch Fox News, you're only going to get Fox News's viewpoints. But having a platform that brings it all together for you and organizes it and tells you which one is which and helps you build a better picture of what's going on. That's what I like to do. And I like to have the full picture. I look at the ground news and get some ideas from there. What do you make of Trump announcement of the ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia? Ukraine and Russia are now my expertise unless they have to do something with the Middle East. Ukrainian Russian conflict, I usually refer to Malcolm Nance and Jacob, but from my understanding, it's bullshit because Ukraine did not even respond to the United States. Realize we have another Friday, Monday reply to go through. I don't know what that means. Though about the DOJ accommodation trading board or whether it is investigating. I have not seen anything from this DOJ that is serious. This is asking whether like about insider trading about oil in administration and the Trump family. I don't think this DOJ is a DOJ that you can expect anything serious. And I'm gonna keep it at that. I wanna stay alive. I don't wanna get deported to Saudi Arabia. So I'm gonna just stay there, okay? Some people don't like me talking, okay? How complicated is the Pakistani relationship with Iran given the Pakistani and Saudi defense agreement? They're finding themselves in a very, very bad pickle. They don't like the fact that Saudi Arabia and Iran are fighting. Their main idea of signing this defense contract was majority like against Israel. They didn't like necessarily keep in mind that Iran might get in conflict with Saudi Arabia. Um, but now Saudi Arabia is putting more pressure on the Pakistani government to do something about it, especially that the Saudi government is essentially funding the Pakistani government and paying a lot of its loans. So Pakistan is in debt to Saudi Arabia. and needs to defend Saudi Arabia. How that's gonna happen is gonna be interesting to play out. Guys, if you have any questions, go to my group chat, and there is a post or a thread I have on there called questions right here, please. Just post your questions over there so I could see it. There's a lot of comments flowing on here. Take a minute to share this live stream and share it with your friends. Destroy that heart button. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're watching a recording, like, subscribe, and share, comment, and click that bell button so you can get the notifications for the latest uploads on YouTube. Um, Also, if you could afford becoming a paid member, consider becoming a paid member. It helps pays the bills and cover the costs and help us do this all day, every day, so you don't have to. I published an article yesterday, an article this morning. I recommend that you guys take a look at it and read it. Describes the nuclear situation in Iran for the yesterday's article. And for today's article, we're talking about uh, the failure or the fall of the uh, Carter Doctrine and the fall of the hegemony and the political diplomacy of the United States. We're approaching the hour. Yeah, thank you. Share it with your family and friends. It's a good read. It's an in-depth research. That's why, with one hand and with my team, we try to get it out for you on a daily basis. But yeah, yeah, I am uh trying to balance how much work I do versus how much recovery I have. And it's a fine balance of respecting your body limits and also uh, providing education. A lot of you have invested in this type of news and in this type of education, and I respect how much you have invested in me and how much you invested in my channel. And it's the least I could do to provide you with the information that you need to stay informed. So even after surgery, I have obligations that I need to attend to, which is you guys, and I have my personal care to do as well. So I'm trying to balance between both. If you are used to reading how many articles I have published before my surgery and now, you're seeing, some shortage of uh, content, but I'm still producing content that's, relevant and important regarding what you are seeing right now and keeping it at a balance, I would say. I'm looking at the messages, not finding any. Oh, here you go. More. How long do you think we have in America before serious shortage? Few months. You only have few months left. If this continues on, which I see it would continue on, you are going to face serious economic shortages, whether it's food, whether it's electronics, whether it's medicine. and I am not happy about that prediction at all. Do you think the Saudis are fed up with MBS? Depending on who you ask, there is no freedom of speech in the kingdom. So there's a lot of people who are either bought by the Saudi government or just Saudi loyalists that you will see coming out on social media defending the Saudi government uh, fiercely. Uh, these people are either extra patriots who don't care about the Saudi human rights violations or excuse the Saudi human rights violations. Additionally, one you'll see people who criticize the Saudi government be call themselves a Saudi opposition. I don't see myself as a Saudi opposition anymore, especially that like I'm viewing myself as a Saudi American politician, someone who's planning to run for office in the future in the United States. So I see myself as someone who's looking at Saudi Arabia now from, even though I have the Saudi perspective, I'm looking at the whole situation with the U.S. interests in mind, and looking at it from human rights first, and both of those things allow me to criticize, and the fact that I live in the United States allow me to criticize key aspects of the Saudi government. But also, I realize that once people call themselves opposition, they get stuck with only having to criticize. And I found that unproductive, and I found that uh, not helping with the the research when I'm trying to be objective. So I decided to step away from calling myself a Saudi opposition and calling myself like someone who s- specializes in geopolitics and analyzing the situation from, an educated perspective. And, that kind of gives me a better perspective of the situation. So um, there are Saudi oppositions out there that will give way harsher criticism toward the Saudi government. They mostly live in Europe, and they live in uh, Canada. You have Umar bin Abdul Aziz, who was close friends with Jamal Khashoggi. You have Ahmed. Uh, Forgot his last name. Anyways, there's many names out there that I'm happy to share with you. Many of those have many of the Saudi opposition in the West, who are in Canada and in the UK in particular, some in the United States, are religious extremists. Umar bin Abdul Aziz, this is maybe a time for another live stream. But Umar bin Abdulaziz has endorsed ISIS several times on X, and endorsed Al Qaeda several times on X back in the day. He has extremist ideas about applying Sharia law after the Saudi government leaves. So many of them switch once they switch to English. They start talking democracy, human rights, and freedom of choice and freedom of speech. But once you talk to them in Arabic, that all changes, and you need to be careful when you talk to members of the GCC opposition, because some of them are truly democratic, and many of them are just wanting to apply some more extremist idea of Sharia law because they believe that the Saudi government is not Muslim enough. So not everyone that's against the Saudi government is asking for democracy. I hope that makes sense. Another question. I have traced. Someone's like, have you ever traced your genetic ancestry? Do you have any relatives in foreign lands other than Saudi Arabia? Yes, I have traced my ancestry. And believe it or not, I'm 6% Ashkenazi Jew. And I found out that I have a good percentage of a Persian. I have Sub-Saharan African. I have North African. I have Eastern Europe. And of course, I have Bedouin, Arabian Peninsula. You know, I'm well mixed. And I've said this many times. Many people don't realize how many ethnically Jewish people exist in Arabia. Jews have been in the Arabian Peninsula for a very long time. Al Harbi tribe in Arabia is known to be a Jewish tribe that has existed there for centuries and they have converted to Islam. There are some people who are secretly Jewish in Arabia. Israel has sent their own Saudi rabbi. Um, so, yes, Judaism has existed in Arabia for a very long time, and admitting it is only one way to figure out this whole complicated issue. One thing that a lot of people don't want to talk about from Arabia is that once the Israeli-Palestinian conflict started and Israelis started taking Palestinian land, the Arabs, not just Saudi Arabia, the Arabs, Arab nations, all of them combined kicked out all the Jews from their countries, from their Arabic countries, and stole their money and stole their properties. And these Jews were forced to go to either, they were forced to leave these Arab nations. So they went all around the world, and many of them went and became settlers in Israel. So, understanding the full story also puts a perspective into, what's going on. So a lot of Arab Jews are forced to go to Israel. And believe it or not, a lot of these Arab Jews also face racism in Israel. Not all of them, but a lot of them do face racism. Um, yeah. Another question. Question goes, is it a problem when opposition to a regime often comes from the outside the regime? I feel sometimes when I hear criticism coming from European Iranians, it seems like they have expectations that are not realistic for the people inside Iran. Yes, that can be true. Um, mm, Once you are outside, your whole ideology becomes able to go public. So whether ideas are realistic or not realistic, they all get thrown out and become part of the discussion. And when you don't have that freedom inside the kingdom, that opposition becomes really hard when it's from abroad because what you end up doing is you're only putting you're not you're here's my problem with opposition outside of a country. My problem comes when they start expecting people in that country to risk their lives for a regime change. Meanwhile, they're sitting, okay, everyone, I need you to go protest. They're sitting in a podcast like this. You need to have The fall of the government. We need another Arab Spring. And I'm like, motherfucker, go then. Go. What's keeping you here? Don't tell people to risk their lives while you're sitting somewhere else in Switzerland, drinking your cup of wine, enjoying the music, not having any foreign interventions, not having any sanctions on you, enjoying your life. No, no, don't do that. That's how I lost the respect for the Saudi people. I was going to keep this for another space, but here's how I really realized how fucked up the opposition can be. Story time with Wajeeh. Before Jamal Khashoggi was executed, he was working on a project called the Beehives with Omar bin Abdul Aziz. Omar bin Abdul Aziz is a Muslim Brotherhood slash Salafist ideology. I told you he has endorsed Al Qaeda and endorsed ISIS in the past and has gotten away with it. But before we knew all of that, he was working with Jamal Khashoggi because the Saudi government had created a center called Tidal. And at the time, they were creating these, what we started calling the flies. Before the beehives, there was the flies. What the fuck is a fly, Waji? Why are you telling us about flies and beehives? That's just the terms that they came up with for the project that exists. Saudi government has the flies, and the flies were responsible in controlling public opinion on social media. So what they would do is they would have a large electronic center with a lot of programmers, with a lot of phones, just plugged in with wires directly to a computer, and they would control the hashtag because the Saudi voices were only heard at the time and public opinion through anonymous accounts on Twitter demanding certain rights like the the payment is not enough for our wages is one of the hashtags, or no taxation without representation was another tax, and was another hashtag that was a protest. And or when someone is going to be executed, their hashtag goes out and becomes, a hit. So the Saudi government start controlling those hashtags by pushing their flies to push their own hashtag, their own narrative on X, or their own narrative on Instagram, where they are basically saying, "Oh, the soccer game between Ahli and Hilal," and they push that hashtag to a point where that becomes number one on X. And so the Saudi opposition, working with Jamal Khashoggi, came up with an idea called the bees to counterattack the Saudi electronic flies that were controlling public opinion on social media. So the Saudi opposition was trying to create a program where they can fight back that control over the public opinion on social media. So the idea was simple but dangerous. And we believe that this is the idea that cost Jamal Khashoggi his life. The idea is we allow as many anonymous users and we teach them how to apply cybersecurity to their life. And then we teach them how to join our group chats, whether it's on Telegram or whether it's on X or whether it's on WhatsApp. And we would include thousands and thousands of people who wants to volunteer. And what would happen is we would all agree on a hashtag that day, and we start our own campaign for the day. So the campaign would start with, for example, no taxation without representation. And we would go in the first 30 minutes of the hour, or in the first 15 minutes of the hour, we say, everyone push the hashtag. So each person in the group chat would push the hashtag in a tweet. They would write their own opinion, or they would just write the hashtag and push it out. That's all they would do. And that would contribute to pushing that opinion to the top of the conversation, which was a very big deal at the time. Still, it was a big deal. And what they ended up doing is they created a successful program for a period of time where we started hitting back against the flies, and we were able to control public opinion every once in a while when we have a successful campaign against the Saudi government. That would end up catching the news, which would end up allowing us to have better news coverage on it, and then we can discuss it and more people get aware about it. So it was successful for a period of time, and I have to be honest about that short period of success. But the Saudi government quickly found a solution and quickly was able to uh, infiltrate the bees program. Part of that infiltration was some people from the Saudi government came in and acted like they were members of the opposition, and they came up with ideas like T1. T1 is a street in Saudi Arabia known for, in Riyadh, known for, its restaurants. So the idea was from that insider is we would have a virtual protest where people would show up in the coffee shop, take a picture, hashtag tweet that they are protesting, and they would leave. Many of us were fooled. I might have been one of them. I was in the United States. Everyone else that wanted to participate was inside Saudi Arabia. Our asses thought is that even if we risked our lives, this community that we created would have come out and lobbied and fought for us to defend us once we get in danger. So people went, and everyone that went got caught. Not right away, in the few days that came next. Name after name was dropping, and people were outing each other because the Saudi government was torturing them. And we started knowing who they are because some of them were communicating with us. If something happens to me, this is my contact. If something happens to me, this is my name. If something happens to me. So we had the list of names. We knew who they were. Some of them were executed. Many of them were sent to conditioning camps. similar to what you see in China, where they torture you until you become a good citizen. We went to Umar bin Abdul Aziz, who was in charge of the program, and his liaison, Abdul Aziz Al Hidayf. His name is Abdul Aziz Al Hidayf. Both of these fuckers did not want to have any campaign demanding the freedom and the release of those political prisoners. Both of them, at the time, living in Canada. Abdulaziz, come on. We need to call for their freedom. We need to have a campaign to ask for their release. He said, I am busy going to college. I am busy going to college. I don't have time running this project. So we saw people that are friends of ours. We saw people who are close to us get tortured, executed, and disappeared. Hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands. And anytime we brought it up to the media, everyone stayed quiet and not brought up a thing because he appeared on Umar bin Abdul Aziz and his clan have been appearing on the news talking about human rights violations by the Saudi government. So the news keeps ignoring the fact that they have asked a lot of people to sacrifice their lives. Meanwhile, they're coming out and saying that we need Middle Eastern freedom, we need democracy, and in Arabic, they're calling for Sharia law. Hypocrisy at its finest. The thing that really stuck with me after that as well is when you call yourself a human rights activist and you have plans on going back and becoming part of the political power. I call that conflict of interest. You want to go out, baby? It's okay. Baby, no. Okay, never mind. Come here. Good boy. So, when you tell me you're fighting for human rights, but your self interest is to go back and become part of the political power, you're no longer interested in human rights. You're interested in power. You're no longer interested in human rights. You're interested in money. It changed the whole equation. Every one of the member of the Saudi opposition out there right now wants to go back and have some sort of ministerial position or run for office or so on and so forth. The same thing with the Iranian opposition abroad. You can't tell me you care about the people. Meanwhile, you are campaigning to become the next king. It doesn't fit. It feels very icky, very awkward. Even if you are against the Iranian government, you look at that and you're like, that does not make sense. It doesn't. You either fight for their human rights, you become a civil rights activist. And then when the people tell you to run, you run. Not when you tell the people, I want to run. People choose you to run for if you're a grassroots organizer. They tell you we need you. It's different when the people come to you and say, run for us. Then you are sitting abroad, not facing any consequences and demanding that the people risk their lives. Thanks for listening to the story time. How do I see the war coming to end? I don't see the war coming to end anytime soon. How do I see this war coming to end? Unfortunately, I don't see an end to the war. It's too complicated, and Trump and his Alzheimer's is not helping. JD Vance doesn't have foreign policy experience. The Iranians are all extremists at the moment, sitting in on the negotiation chair, and the Speaker of the Parliament, the President, and the Prime Minister. I mean, the Speaker of the Parliament, the President, and the Foreign Minister are all kind of considered to be the most lenient of the Iranian people at the moment. The United States wants Iran to get rid of all of its nuclear uh, cake. Iran is not going to do that. The United States wants Iran to pause its uranium enrichment. Iran is thinking 10 times about, well, maybe not. The United States wants Iran to get rid of their proxy allies, and that's something Iran is just not going to do. The United States wants Iran to back away from everything they have invested of in the last 47 years, 48 years. Meanwhile, the Iranians want the United States to never come back to the Arabian Peninsula or any of in military bases in the region. They never want to see U.S. ships in the Persian Gulf or the Arabian Gulf anymore. They want a legal, ratified document from the U.S. Congress ensuring that the United States will never attack Iran again, which is never going to happen. They want the United States to give and pay uh, the cost of the war, which the United States is not going to allow to happen. They want they are demanding that the Strait of Hormuz easy pass stays and not going away, which is the United States not going to allow. So how is this going to end? Tell me, you tell me. You tell me how the war is going to end. Why would it end? With everyone being so extreme at the moment, it wouldn't. Iran is not giving up. The United States not giving up. Iran sees itself as in control. The United States sees itself as in control. Iran can do this for a little. They're both playing chicken. They're both waiting for who's going to chicken out first. It's a waiting time. And as long as it's a chicken game, we're all going to pay the price. They're the ones waiting. Oh, we can wait. Iranians are like, we can wait. Meanwhile, you're paying the price. Trump's numbers are going through the trash, but Iranians are being attacked. At least they could tell their people, we're being attacked. You have to wait. You have to be patient. Yeah, my pet's name is Malcolm. I did coincidentally. Question from me: have U.S. bases in the Gulf been in a great part of to protect from Iran, regional Islamist terrorists, a carryover from historical ties with Western countries? Has Iran been using proxies to stay under? There's like three questions in there. I'm gonna answer it one by one. U.S. in the past did try to keep uh, and spent a lot of money and effort protecting the Gulf nations and helping them train and helping them get resources and helping them get military. The thought was is that they are giving the Gulf nations are giving the United States a strategic access to the region. In exchange, the United States gets to protect oil production, protect its assets in the region. And in the same time, the Gulf nations felt that they are secure. There's something called presumption of control. When you think because you're making most of the decisions that you are in control of the situation. A lot of magicians take advantage of that, especially like like mind trick magicians. They come to you and they ask you a lot of questions and tell you to make a lot of decisions, and then they end up figuring out exactly what you're thinking. That's because they use something called perceived control, where you perceive yourself that you're in the control of the situation. That's what's happening in the White House, and that's what the Gulf nations thought that they were doing. Now that the United States proved to the Gulf nations, that they cannot protect the Gulf nations are already looking elsewhere. It didn't take them days, it's hours. Oh, you can't protect us? Okay, okay. Kran, Habibi, you busy? Come over here. I want to talk to you. Yeah, I want to talk to you real quick about safety and security. You're so good to us. We're friends, right? Yeah, it didn't take much. They did teach the Gulf nations how to fight terrorist organizations, but it was important for the United States national security to have these Gulf nations part of the anti-terrorist fight because without the Gulf states they would have not were able to fight any of these terrorist organizations successfully. The United States would have had to spend trillions of dollars extra. They would have had to risk more of its soldiers. They didn't know a lot of insight. And without that insight and knowledge and expertise of the Islamic extremism, the United States would have been unsuccessful, more unsuccessful than they were. Historical ties are as important as you protect them. Just like when very rich families inherit money, when you inherit important legal contracts, when you inherit security contracts, is as holy as you keep it. The more you disrespect these contracts and these alliances, the more worthless it is. So that's what you're like finding yourself in. Yes. Read I want you to go and find my latest article, Mr. Me or Mrs. Me or They Me. Go find my last article. I talked particularly about that, about how the doctrine from President Carter, from President Carter. U.S. diplomacy and U.S. hegemony had its own standards and had its own respect and had its own people. And when it said the word, the world paid attention. No, now the world pays attention, but they're like, how the fuck do we stay away from this? Rather than like the world is paying attention to what the United States doing, and their respond to that is, well, we should make new allies, or we should have better military alliances. That's not good for you. The only reason the Gulf nations are still working for you is because most of their military infrastructure is made by the United States, so they're depending currently on the United States. But wait, year by year, you're going to disappear. The fact that you've been evicted for 36 hours from the uh, air bases already says a lot. We've been in the top 10 for the last 2 weeks. Help us become in the top three by liking, subscribing, and sharing the podcasts and the articles that I do and the posts that I make. If you could consider becoming a paid subscriber, please consider becoming a paid subscriber. It help us pay the bills and do the work that we do. If you like the type of content that we push out, if you like the type of information we're giving you, type of education, uh, we're not doing this. I'm only doing this because you're asking for it. I'm only doing this because I'm finding people who are wanting to learn about it. Otherwise, I was doing it on X and not getting any attention. So without your support, we wouldn't be here. Without your help, we wouldn't be here. So please consider becoming a paid subscriber. Um, I have posted a message yesterday or a thread in the group chat saying if you cannot afford to become a paid subscriber, come in, send me a message, tell me that you want to become a paid member or receive the easy pass, like you guys like to call it. You want an easy pass on the house? Let me know. I'll give you an easy pass on the house. Mother's Day is coming up. If your mother's on the platform and you want me to give her an easy pass on the house, I'm happy to give one away. Um, Other than that, thank you so much for tuning in. We had plenty of questions. We passed an hour and a half, I believe, and my phone is about to die, and I need to go take my medications. So I appreciate you tuning in. I appreciate you listening. Like, subscribe, and share. Invite your friends, and I'll see you tomorrow. Like I like to say, مع السلامة, bye bye. بالإنجليزي, goodbye. I'll see you next time.